Hello everyone. In the last class we started our discussion on network software. So what were some of the structuring issues while discussing network software? So we discussed these structuring issues. First was the protocol hierarchies, second is the design issues, third is the connection oriented and connectionless services, fourth is the service primitives, and fifth is relationship of services to protocols. Now we will look in detail. So first is the protocol hierarchies. So what basically do you mean by protocol hierarchies? As we have already seen as an analogy to our university, like you have got chairman, vice chairman. So their functions are defined in order for a effective working of the organization. Similarly, for the effective working of a network, these layers and hierarchies are important. So as you can see from the figure, you have got a 5-layer network here. This is a 5-layer network. These hierarchies are called layers. Okay. So this host 1 has 5 layers. Similarly, you have got host 2 with 5 layers. Okay. So this host 1 and host 2 can either be your sender or receiver. So this host 1 can be your sender or receiver. Similarly, host 2 can be your sender or receiver. Depending upon the sender and the receiver, which host is the sender or the receiver, you have got either this will be your first layer or this will be your first layer. Suppose this host 1 is the sender, okay, then the upper layer is defined as the first layer. Okay. Why? Because this host, the users are in direct contact with this layer. So this will be defined as the first layer. So if it is a receiver, okay, if it is a receiver, the bottom layer will be declared as the first layer. Okay. So which layer is the first or the second depends upon either the host is a sender or receiver. Here you can see an example of a 5-layer network. Okay. So this connection between these layers are called interfaces. So here this is layer 4, 5 interface. Similarly, you have got 3, 4 interface, 2, 3 interface, and 1, 2 interface. Okay. Similarly, on the other side, here you can see this dashed line. This dashed line is a way of indicating virtual communication. So it means both layers are communicating but virtually. So what is the exact path of the data? The data is moving from, if it is a sender, layer 5 to layer 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. When the data comes to layer 1, it is physically transmitted over the physical medium. At the receiver, the data again goes from bottom to top. So it will first go from layer 1, then layer 2, layer 3, layer 4 and layer 5. So this is the flow of the data. The next structuring issue that we will discuss are the design issues. So while developing the protocols for the layers, the network designers have to look out for some certain design issues. So here are some of the listed design issues. First is the addressing, second error control, third flow control, fourth multiplexing, and fifth is the routing. So basically what is an addressing? Suppose your sender wants to send data packets to a particular receiver. So every receiver or every end device should have with itself a certain unique address. Either it can be logical address or physical address. So what kind of addressing schemes to be employed in a network is one of the design issue which the network device engineers has to look into. The second is the error control. So suppose you are sending data packets to the receiver or to a certain host. So in the transmission of the data, suppose the bits are changed, suppose the information that you wished to transmit was 101 and any of the bits got changed due to the transmission error. So what happens at the receiver? The information that you are getting is not the information that you wanted to send. Okay, so this is not reliable. In order to ensure that you should have certain mechanism to carry out error control and recovery. So that is also one of the design aspect that an engineer has to look into. The third is the flow control. Okay, so understand like this. Suppose you have got a mobile phone with you, you are downloading something from a certain server. The mobile device that is available with you is capable of downloading at a rate of 10 Mbps. But the server to which you are connected to, it is sending data at a rate of 100 Mbps. So what happens? At your side, the data will accumulate, okay? So it will lead to congestion, okay? And in that case, some of the data packets may be dropped also. So that is why there is this error between the speed of the server and your device. So that is what is meant by flow control, like how the speed of both the server and the client or the host needs to be synchronized. That comes under the flow control. The next issue is the multiplexing. Suppose you wish to send signals, but you also at the same time want to increase the efficiency of the channel in terms of bandwidth or time. Okay, so you can go for multiplexing. So multiplexing basically means you can send more than one signals at the same time or in the same bandwidth. So that is how, that is also considered one of the design issues. And the last is routing. So what is basically a routing? You try to understand this with a simple example. Suppose I want to go to Hyderabad. Right now I am in Tenali, but I want to reach to Hyderabad at a particular time. Okay, so I may have many options to go to Hyderabad. Either I can go by car, or I can go by train, or I can take a flight. Okay, so all of these are the possibilities. But I have to reach to Hyderabad, means I want to take the shortest path, means shortest time path. So I will go by flight because it will give me the shortest amount of time in which I can reach Hyderabad. So here, what is the thing that I have taken into consideration? The time, okay, the shortest time. But suppose I have enough time and I just want a way to go comfortably. So I can, instead of going by flight, I can go by some other means, okay. If I am thinking about money, okay, so I can go by some other path. So that is called choosing the best path depending upon the requirements. So routing means choosing the best path for the data packets to travel, okay. So depending upon the requirements, means depending upon the network congestion or depending upon some other criteria, this routing determines the best path for the data packets to travel. The next structuring issues is connection oriented versus connectionless services. So what happens when you dial your telephone line, means landline phone? So you are dialing your number, so basically it is generating a physical connectivity, physical path between you and the person whom you are calling. So that is a kind of connection oriented, okay. Similarly you have connectionless. So what happens in connection oriented? A physical path or a predetermined route is determined before sending the packets, okay. So the data packets are traveling through the predetermined route. Where connectionless network, what happens? So the data packets sent from the sender can take different paths, but they will ultimately be received at the receiver, okay. So the sequence in which they will be received at the receiver may not be in proper order. So basically in connectionless services, what you have got, the data packets are not in order when they are received at the receiver. So it is the job of the receiver layer, or it is the job of the layer of the receiver to organize the data packets into certain sequences, okay. But this is not in the case of connection oriented services. So here you can see some of the examples of connection oriented and connectionless services. As a very simple example, I will tell you, when you are streaming YouTube videos, okay, so those videos are already in the database. You want your videos to be of high clarity. In that case, you can avoid some delay or you can ignore some delay, but you want your data packets to be of high quality. So in that case, you go for connection oriented services. But when you are streaming a live video, okay, or live cricket match, you don't want delay, okay. Some of the noise or some of the video quality may be acceptable to you, but you don't want it to be delaying, okay. So in that case, you go for connection less services. So this streaming videos online, streaming live videos online is an example of using connectionless services. The next structuring issue is the service primitives. So what are basically service primitives? Service primitives are the actions which are taken by an operating system in order to perform a certain service. For an example, if you take that the software, the network software has to perform a simple connection oriented service. So what are certain actions that need to be performed at the server and the host side in order to give you a connection oriented service? So these are basically 5 actions. First is listen. Okay, listen. So where is this implemented? Listen action is implemented at the server side. So this server operating system carries out this listen. Okay, and what does it do? Okay, it waits. Listen means it will block other processes that are going inside the server, and it will wait for a connection from the client. It will tell the client, okay, it is open to any kind of connection. The second service primitive is your connect, which happens at the client side. So any client who is wishing to connect to the server, okay, they will issue this connect service primitive. Okay, so it will make a call to the server that that particular client is wishing to make a connection to it. Okay. This receive service primitive is issued at the server side. So this server, when acknowledges this connect from the client, it will say, okay, you can connect with me now and I am ready to receive your data or receive your query. So this is performed at the server side. Connect at the client side. So when the server is ready, the client side carries out this action called send. So basically what this send means, it will start sending the data packets, and once it has started sending the data packets, once its work is over, it will issue disconnect. First client will issue disconnect and then server. So basically this means after the work has been done, they are terminating the connection. So from the slide you can see a clear picture. So here what happens, first this server is listening to the client calls. It is available to listen to the client calls. At the same time, this client is making connection request to the server. The server is acknowledging your request. Once these two processes are over, it means connection is established. After connection is established, this client requests for the data to the server. The server gives back the reply, and once these two processes are over, this client issues disconnect and the server in return issues disconnect, and the connection is terminated. So this is an example of a simple client server model. The next topic is relationship to service protocols. So basically we saw what is a service. Services are basically the functions. Functions performed by the layer. Okay. So services you can visualize like this. What are the functions provided by the layers to the upper and the layers below it? And protocols means how these functions are implemented. Okay. So services answer a question of what, and protocol answers the question of how. So what are the functions and how it is implemented? So having understood these structuring issues of network software, we will go and look at the reference models that are very much important while designing a network. So basically there are two models, reference models, that we will look at. First is the Open System Interconnect, okay, OSI reference model, and the second is TCP/IP model. And then we will give a brief comparison between these two. Okay. So OSI, this Open Systems Interconnect. What is the full form? Open Systems Interconnect. So what this means the end devices are open to interconnections with each other. That is why it got its name. It was developed by ISO, International Standard Organization, and it got it has got 7 layers. As you can see from the figure, it has got 7 layers. Okay. So, the topmost layer, if you consider this host A as the sender, likewise I told you, if you consider host A as the sender, the first layer, okay, the first layer will be considered as the application layer. Okay. Similarly, you have got the second layer called presentation, then session, transport, network, data link and physical layer. Similarly, at the receiver side, okay, suppose this host B is your receiver. So, what will be the layer first for host B? The layer first will be your physical layer. So, in between these two are network devices. So, you see here you have only 3 layers for network devices, because the higher layers for network devices are not necessary. Since users use this application, presentation and session and transport layer, since there are no users for networking devices and the only function of networking devices is to share and route the data packets, we have got only 3 layers for the networking devices. So, you see here first this application layer. Okay. So, if you guys have problem to remember what are the 7 layers for OSI model, a simple acronym is there. Okay, you can memorize from this. All people seem to need data processing. So, here A stands for application, P stands for presentation, S stands for session, T stands for transport, N for network, D for data link and P for physical. Okay. So, I guess it will be easy to memorize. So, now let us look again at the slide. Here at the sender side, this first one is the application layer. So, what is the basic function of application layer? Whenever you are browsing something over the World Wide Web, what happens? It is sent to your request is sent to the server using protocols of application layer. So, some of the protocols of application layer are FTP, okay, SMTP, HTTP. So, whenever you are browsing YouTube, okay, you are making use of this hypertext transfer protocol of application layer. Okay, when you are sending mail, you are making use of SMTP, simple mail transfer protocol. Okay. So, once you have typed something in your browser, the next layer comes the presentation layer. Whatever you have typed in the browser, it needs to be translated into a standard binary format that is understood by the computer. So, that is where the presentation layer comes into picture. So, this presentation layer performs translation. Okay. So, translation means you are translating your high level language to a language which is directly understood by the computer. One of the function is translation. The another function is, if any redundant bits is there or redundant data is there, it will compress the data. So, another function is compression. So, why does this compression helps? It will reduce the size of the data and thus the speed of the flow of the data will be fast. And the third function is encryption. Okay. So, in order to ensure the security of your data packets, it will encrypt your data. So, that is performed by presentation. After that, the data comes to the session layer. What is the function of this session layer? Okay, you understand with an analogy. Suppose you want to throw a party at your home. Okay, so for an effective party, what you hired some of the persons like cook, cleaners. Okay, so there are some helpers who are helping you to carry out your party without any problem. Similarly, is the function of the session layer. So, this session layer basically provide helper functions, okay, so which will help for effective communication between the sender and the receiver. Also, it maintains synchronization, okay, synchronization between the sender and the receiver. Suppose the sender is asking something now it is the turn of the receiver to reply back. So that kind of synchronization is maintained by this session layer. Okay. The next layer after that is your transport layer. Okay. So this transport layer basically ensures process to process delivery of the data packets. So what does process to process delivery means? Suppose at the sender, okay, you are working on two processes. You are sending an email, okay, to person at host B, okay, to host B you are sending, and at the same time you are watching YouTube videos. So there are two processes running on your system. Your data has been delivered to your host B, okay, okay, that host B machine the data has been delivered, but to which process at host B the data packets are meant for is decided by this transport layer. Okay. So it ensures process to process delivery of the data packets. The next layer is the network layer. Okay. So this network layer is basically the function is routing, as I already discussed, like which path should the data packets go. Okay. So depending upon the requirements, this network layer will calculate the best path for the data packets to flow. Also, another function which is performed by network layer is congestion control. So suppose if there is too much traffic, okay, in the subnet, so how to control this traffic is also the function of network layer. Then flow control, okay, maintaining the speed of the sending data at the sender and receiver, okay, that is also maintained by the network layer. The next layer is the data link layer. What is the function of data link layer? So when you the basic function of data link layer is framing and error control. So already we discussed error control. Suppose you are sending data packets from sender to receiver, there needs to be some kind of mechanism in order to detect like my data packets at the receiver are correct or not, and to some extent we have to recover the errors. We have to recover our original data packet. So that is also one of the function of data link layer. The last layer is the physical layer. So this physical layer is where the actual transmission of bits is happening. So like what kind of electrical signals should be used to encode this 1 and 0, okay, is a concern of physical layer. Then what kind of transmission medias to use, either optical fiber or twisted pair cables are also a concern for physical layer. So you will be learning these functions of each and every layer in detail in further units. So we have discussed OSI reference model. The second model that we will go is TCP IP model. Okay. So the functions that I already said, okay, both are pretty much similar. Okay. Here the only difference is this TCP IP has only 4 layers. Okay. The first is the application layer, okay, second transport, third internet, and the fourth is host to network. You can also call it as network access layer. Okay. So it's not like that this presentation and session are absent, but actually this application layer in TCP IP model, it is performing the function of application, presentation and session layer of OSI model. Okay. Here this transport layer function is similar to that of transport layer function of OSI. Here internet layer function is similar to that of network layer of OSI model, and this network access layer function is similar to the functions of these two combined, okay, data link and physical layer. So why do we prefer TCP IP model? Okay, so this OSI was developed first, but the problem with OSI was what? First the layers were decided. Okay, so it was just a theoretical concept. First the layers were decided and then the protocols were implemented. Okay, so first the layers were decided and then the protocols for that was developed. So it was very difficult to actually develop the protocols for each layer because these layers were strictly defined. These layers are strictly defined. Okay, but in TCP IP model it was not the case. Okay, first what happened? First protocols were defined. And after that okay, suiting to that protocols, layers were decided. Okay, so you see here there is not a clear distinction between each and every layer in TCP/IP where there is strict boundary in OSI model. So that is why TCP/IP model was gained wide popularity than OSI model. So here are some of the protocols that are used in TCP/IP and OSI model. So we will discuss here this in later chapters like Telnet, FTP, SMTP, DNS, all of these. Okay. So from the slide you can see some of the differences between OSI and TCP/IP model I have illustrated here. So first is TCP/IP has got 4 layers whereas OSI has got 7 layers. Second is TCP/IP is more reliable than OSI because it is physically implemented. It is more physically realizable than OSI model. Third is TCP/IP does not have strict boundaries whereas OSI model has. Fourth is TCP/IP uses both session and presentation layer in the application layer whereas in OSI they are considered as separate layers. In TCP/IP, first the protocols were developed, then the models, whereas vice versa happened for OSI. The next is protocols cannot be easily replaced in TCP/IP models because protocols were first developed. So according to the protocols, only layers were decided. So you cannot replace protocols easily in TCP/IP model, but in OSI you can easily change. And the last difference is in TCP/IP model, only one mode is supported, okay, in network layer, that is connectionless services, and in transport layer both connectionless and connection oriented is supported, whereas in OSI both the connection oriented and connectionless services are supported in both the layers. So having understood the reference models, we will go and look at how the internet evolved. Okay, so what is the history behind internet? So the history of the internet started with ARPANET. So the history of internet began with ARPANET. So the story is quite old. Okay, so the story started around 1950s. So around 1950s, this US and Soviet Union were enemies. They were on Cold War. So both wanted to excel. Okay, they had a competition between them. So at that time what happened, this Department of Defense of US, they wanted to have a better communication over the military data. So what happened at that time, this military communications happened through telephone lines, okay, here. That time in US, this military data communication was happening through telephone lines. So you can see here the structure of the telephone lines, okay. You had got tall offices, okay, that this tall offices were the central points, okay, and these small black dots are the switching offices, okay. So what happened? So during any fault, okay, if any of the links, okay, was at fault, this tall points or these switching offices would be disconnected from any of the tall offices or the central points. So what happened? They would be left as isolated, okay. So there was no way to recover them back, okay. So this was the demerit of this structure. So so at that time this Department of Defense US gave this contract to one of the corporation called RAND Corporation, okay, in order to develop some better model of communication, okay. So so in that one of the employee was there called Paul Barron. Okay. So this Paul Barron, he developed this distributed communication network. So as you can see from the figure, each and every point was attached to each and every point. Okay, so this kind of had closed distributed system. So even if one of the link failed, it could send data through alternative paths. So this was one of the biggest advantage of this model, this structure. But at that time what happened, one company who used to who was in the control of all these telephone lines, that was AT&T, okay, AT&T. This was one of the biggest telephone services company of US. Okay, so when it got this structure, okay, when Department of Defense told this Paul Barron's idea of this structure to AT&T, they rejected his idea. Okay, they said no, this structure wouldn't be implemented. Okay, so that is how that this structure got no lead. It stopped there. But 7 years later, after when USSR launched their first satellite called Sputnik, you might have heard this Sputnik satellite was launched in. This was the first satellite. It was launched in October 1957. Okay. At that time, Russia, USSR, it launched this Sputnik satellite. So what? At that time, this US got chill. So they cannot tolerate, this USA cannot tolerate this idea. So they began working on this network communication even more harder. Okay. So they, in that, for that only, they developed this ARPA. Okay. This ARPA is called Advanced Research Project Agency. Okay. So in order to defeat USSR in this area of wireless and satellites, they developed this ARPA called Advanced Research Project Agency. Okay. So at first this ARPA was concentrated in a single building because they didn't know how to communicate. So one of the program manager of ARPA was Roberts. Okay. Laurie Roberts. Okay. So he was in constant search of an effective way of communication. So at that time he went to one conference called ASEAN conference. Okay, it was a global conference where he saw that another company called National Physics Laboratory of England, they were implementing the idea of Baron. Okay, that Baron gave that distributed idea communication. So they were implementing that Baron's idea. So this Laurie Roberts got he got the idea like, okay, that Baron's idea can be effectively implemented. So that is why he went back and he tried to develop on the communication and he adopted Baron's idea. He too adopted Baron's idea. Okay. So then he began conceptualizing the network. So how did he first brought out a theoretical concept. So in that theoretical concept, this structure would have a host, okay, a subnet, okay, this is the subnet, and in subnet, these networking devices will be called as IMPs. These are mini computers, okay. So at that time switches, routers were not there, so they were using mini computers, and these mini computers were called as IMPs, interface message processors, and these interface message processors would be connected through transmission lines of 56 kbps capacity, okay, 56 kbps. So that is how he came up with a conceptualized idea. When this idea got theoretically publicized, they wanted to bring it into practical implementation. So at that time, they gave this contract to BBN. So BBN was another company, okay, in US. So they gave this contract to BBN for developing this physical realization of this idea. Okay, so this BBN worked on this idea. So this BBN developed the protocols between IMPs and the host, between these two IMPs, and then also the network hardware aspects. So that is how this ARPANET came into existence. This eventually came to be known as ARPANET. Okay. So likewise, this small ARPANET came into existence. So with the passage of time, more small number of networks were being developed by other companies and they got attached to this ARPANET. So with the time, this ARPANET came to be known as Internet. So that is how, if we see now, what is the backbone of our Internet? That is ARPANET. So even now when you see who is the back end of this Internet, which is maintained by AT&T, okay, who is the back end of the Internet? That is maintained by AT&T. That AT&T is maintaining this ARPANET today. So this ARPANET is the backbone of this Internet. Okay. Okay, so now you realized how this internet grew. So there are, along with the internet, there are some professional bodies who are maintaining standards across all country. Okay, so this one such body is IEEE. Okay, International Institutes of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. So this IEEE is developing protocols, standardized protocols. So you can see here 802.1, 802.2. Basically, this 802. Okay, this 802 is working in your internet area. So you can find 802.11 is working in for the protocols of wireless LANs and so on. Okay, so with this IEEE standards, we are now over with your first unit. So we have already seen in your first unit what is the basic idea behind computer networks, the uses, okay, then the components of computer networks, hardware and the software components, and we discussed these hardwares and softwares in detail. Okay, along with that we looked at some of the example internet called your ARPANET, and finally we looked at IEEE standards.